This video is brought to you by Big Bad Toy Store. Make your purchases through my personal link in the description to help out the channel. Furthermore, if you want to support me more directly, you can check out my YouTube channel membership for fun emojis and sneak peeks, or my Patreon. Links in the description. Okay, so we've finally gotten to fixing up Waylon here. I really like this figure here, the McFarlane DC Multiverse figure, but I have a couple of issues with it. It's really monotone in terms of color. Like, this one has the more, like, difference between the belly scales, like the front scales, and, like, the back with the green and the yellow beige. And the pants are a lot more accurate here. They're a bit more muted and drab here. And then this guy is also missing all these wonderful chains. These are, like, real metal as well, by the way. As for the sculpt itself, I'm pretty sure that the DC Direct one here is more accurate. I think it kind of works for the McFarlane one to have like these more natural looking scales instead of this pretty much like grid-like pattern, but the rest of the sculpt, it just looks a bit more proportioned, I guess. And I kind of like Croc being a little bit smaller, because honestly in the game he's like, what, like 11 feet tall, and I don't really like that. This is just like ever so slightly shorter, and he looks a bit more proportionate in terms of human sizing. Like, he's still like impossibly huge, but I don't know, I think I like the proportions of this guy a little bit better. The articulation on this is a lot better too. This guy is completely rigid in the torso, and his legs are a little bit, I don't know, he's just a bit stiff. The first run of this figure was also really prone to breaking. The arms would pretty much just fall off because the pins would crumble. They were made of like this infamous translucent plastic, and pretty much it just dissolved. The second run had steel rods inserted to make it more durable, and that's the one I have. You can actually see the difference if you look at the box, but other than that, I don't really think there's any discernible difference. So, yeah, but anyway, I'm gonna fix this guy up. I might, depending on how it turns out, I might transfer this way more accurate head onto this figure, and I might try to add some chains to this guy at some point. But for now, we're just gonna see how it turns out if I add some of this nice orc flesh to like the majority of his body, and then we're gonna make this like a nice beige yellow mix. So for starters, this is a contrast paint, which it's not quite a wash, it's a little bit thicker, and it pretty much acts as both a shade and like a base layer at the same time. So yeah, we're gonna start with the back here. I can already kind of see that this is the wrong color for what I ultimately want, but I think it will still be like a pretty good like dark wash for it, because I guess I'll just dry brush the majority of the figure in a more kind of like, I don't know what you call this type of green, but yeah. Okay, so I don't really like how this is turning out. Yeah, I know it's like just like a pre-base coat, but I think we're gonna go with some straight up black wash here instead. Yeah, this here wasn't my my greatest idea. I don't know, I thought I could save some time by just pouring it straight onto the figure, but you know, you live and learn, I guess. I really like how the wash is setting up here where the scales are a bit smaller. It looks great. So now I'm gonna do a dry brush of this refractive green. So I'm not seeing enough change, so I'm gonna go a shade lighter with this like heavy gray. It's actually green, but yeah. So I don't really like the way this is turning out too much. There's still some of that ugly orc green shining through at certain spots, like top of the shoulders here. But I'm going to just go ahead and do like the belly bit with these two paints. This is yellow ochre and stonewall grey. I'm going to do a little mix and then just dry brush that over here and see how that looks. So I can't really make it look good, so I just ended up using this stonewall grey to lighten up this area, and now I'm going to try to dry brush this Everland sunset on it. So I'm not really sure about this color. I want it to be a little bit warmer, kind of like this DC Direct figure. So I'm gonna add some of this dwarf skin in there, just like a little faint dry brush to orange it up a tiny bit. So let's try it out, like faint little dry brush. I don't want it to be like overbearingly orange. I just want to throw some more contrast in there. As you can see, the beige is still like the predominant color. This just kind of tints it a little bit. So now I want to go in one more time with this Agrux Earth Shade just to kind of dull everything down a little bit, because the dwarf skin is quite potent in just like how bright it is. And I feel like we need a little bit of a lighter green for some more contrast. You see, like this green over here is a lot lighter than this, and that's kind of what I want to go for. Okay, so I have a mix of this heavy grey and some white and this Vallejo Goblin green, just to try to brighten up and make the green contrast a little bit more against this kind of like whatever you call this color. So let's just try brighten this up a little bit. Again, with a nice dry brush. I just want the like separation between these two colors to be a little bit more drastic. I quite like this, but I also think it's a little bit too bright now. I might try to dull it down with some Agrux Earth Shade, like I did with like the main chest. Blend everything in a bit more here. The transition a bit more natural. So I'm gonna dull down everything again with some Agrix Earthshade. I'd say this looks pretty good here. So I'm still not really all that satisfied with how he's currently looking, but I figured... Oh, that's a bit too heavy-handed. But I figured I would just, you know, go ahead and paint in the teeth for now. So I know I keep going over the torso with different colors, but I'm gonna try this like flayed orc flesh and just brighten it up a little bit. Because I still feel like something is a little bit amiss. Okay, so I think this is about as far as I can go with it, and I don't know, I don't really feel like it's all there. Like, the McFarlane figure has some very artistic liberties with this sculpt. Like, he doesn't really look accurate at all to the Arkham Asylum and Arkham City model. Like, this guy is pretty much spot on in terms of, like, the actual, like, belly sculpt, and this guy has a more, I would say, realistic look to it, but this does look more like the source material. However, I do prefer, like, both the size and the posture for this guy, so I feel like if I could transfer the head from this guy onto here and maybe give him like a chain or two or maybe three, I might stick with this. But for starters, I'm gonna heat up both heads, and then I'm gonna see how they fit, because I'm not really sure. This head looks a lot bigger than this one, so we'll see. Okay, so here are both figures without heads, and apparently this collar here, which is originally stuck, it's stuck very, very loosely. There's just like a little socket in here which plugs in here, and then it's connected to the front as well. But the original DC Direct Figures' chain is completely, like, it's always been really easy to remove, so you can just put it on like so. However, this is the head for the original DC Direct figure, and like I said, it's way more accurate, but I don't think it's going to fit here without me doing some kind of biggish modifications. Actually, maybe this head joint is pretty deep, so let's just try to force it on. Okay, so here are both figures with the head swapped, and I mean, the McFarlane head works pretty well on this, except for that, you know, the head is way too small, but that's beside the point. So the reason why I'm sticking with this old collar here is because there's quite a lot of space. Like, it's kind of hard because I had to, like, as you can see, there's quite a lot of dead area here, and in between the head and the neck, just because of how this head is sculpted. And if I used the much bigger collar from the old DC Direct figure, the gap was, you know, way too severe. Like, it kind of works here, but I don't know, it just looks a little bit too big, I think. So in order to hide like the imperfections here, I feel like the smaller collar works a lot better, just because it fills out this entire neck area. So a little update, I caught a cold, but I also fixed this collar. So I carved out a hole here in this already pre-sculpted like chain loop, and I just grabbed a little piece of chain here, and then I slot it in like so. We close up the loop like that. Like, it's pretty sturdy, so it won't like fall off or anything. Like, you see, I can even like hold it like this, and yeah, put the head back on. I also made this hole a little bit bigger because this peg is like really thick. So there we go. It's really difficult to film this figure because he's so large. So you can still open the mouth if you adjust the head a little bit. Like, you need to kind of, you see, like, adjust it up and down like this. And here is Croc completed. Originally I was going to do something about the pants, but I kind of actually like them being a little bit more muted rather than the original like bright orange. So yeah, like to sum it up, this is obviously the McFarlane body with the DC Direct head, and that is because the DC Direct head is, one, it's a lot more accurate, two, it has an articulated jaw. And the way I did this is I simply just swapped them. As you can see, this McFarlane head is a little bit too small for this body. I think this looks pretty good though. There is like a little bit of a gap here. You can hide it if you just push everything in a little bit more, but then he ends up looking kind of up a little bit and he looks a bit hunchback. But regardless, you're supposed to look at him from the front anyway, so, you know, it doesn't really bother me that much. And, you know, I added this metal chain. It's from this chain my dad found, and it's black, so I had to like file off the paint, so it looks a bit murky, but I think it looks good like this. I admit the body for the McFarlane figure isn't nearly as accurate as the original DC Direct one, but I kinda like this more naturalistic, like, scale look rather than this kind of super grid-like pattern-esque version. And I also like the size a lot more on this guy. I never really liked Croc being like 10 to 12 feet in the game, and I think this might still be a little bit too big for my liking, but it's more in line with what I would like. He also has a lot more articulation because of this body change, and I'm pretty happy with how this color scheme turned out. I think the transition between the scales is quite good. It's a little less in your face than on this one. So yeah, that's my killer Croc. Hope you enjoyed.
You are not welcome here. Your scent is different. I smell death on you. I don't need to fight you, Batman. I just need to wait, and then I will feed on your corpse.